Alright, so we are now going to focus on the main line. After e4, d6, d4, black develops the knight to f6, attacking the pawn on e4. And here we're going to defend the pawn. We can defend the pawn in many different ways, with the bishop, with the pawn, but the most natural way to defend it is definitely knight to c3, which is what we're going to play. Just want to mention that the move e5 is an idea in some positions, but in this particular case, it simply fails. Black can simply trade on e5, and then trade queens. And after knight to g4, we have a problem. This pawn f2 is under attack. This pawn e5 is also being attacked. So here we're even losing material. So this is definitely not a good idea. So after knight to c3, here black main's idea in the Pirc is to flank out the bishop. That's why g6 is the main move, the main line. And here we have a lot of possible moves. For example, knight to f3 is a move, f4 is a move. But the move that I like to play in this position is the move bishop to e3. The main idea being to go for queen to d2 and then castle long for this English attack type of positions that we studied very deeply when we studied the Sicilian defense. So we are fairly familiar with these setups, so that's going to be great for us. And here in this position, black has two main options. Black can play the most natural move bishop to g7 and then castle, or black can delay the development. And normally black does the latter. Normally black doesn't go for a quick castling because those positions score very well for white. But in any case, let's see how we would play in those positions. So after bishop to g7, queen to d2, if black castles, then here we could simply castle long. f3 is an idea, but we could play later to keep other options open because sometimes we might even play f4 straight away. So here we could first castle long. And now our idea is pretty simple, just go for bishop to h6, trade bishops, then just launch a pawn storm on the king side and try to checkmate black. That's pretty direct. So here black could also try to get some counterplay by developing the queen side, for example c6, and now here we just play bishop to h6, and now black might continue with b5, which has an idea of playing b4, attacking the knight, and then putting pressure on e4. That's why if black plays a move like b5, then we could simply first play f3 and then continue with our attack. Or if black tries queen to a5, which is a move that has been playing in this position, then here we could simply continue with our attack. One idea is to go h4, another idea is to go f3. Trading on g7 is possible, but we are in no hurry because if black moves the bishop, then so far we have this idea of taking on f8. That's why we can keep that option. So in the model game, white play f3, h4 was also strong, and in these positions, white normally gets an attack faster than black. For example, after e5, which is what black tried in the model game, white simply developed the knight in order to capture on the 4 with the knight. And after knight b to d7, now white traded on g7, and then went g4, with this well-known idea of going for h4 and h5. So the game continued b5, black is trying to get counterplay, but so far black only has a queen to attack, that's why white's attack normally is going to be faster in this position. And after h4, black tried knight to b6, but just to show you a sample line, here black could have tried b4, attacking the knight, but here we simply just go knight to b1, and after queen takes, h5, white's attack is normally going to be much faster because here we have the queen and the rook that will combine after taking on g6. For example, knight to b6, we trade, black has to take with the f pawn, otherwise queen to h6 and queen to h8 is going to be a checkmate. So after taking with the f pawn, here we can first play b3, black doesn't have any checks, and we have all the threats in the position. For example, a5, queen to h6, and after queen to g8, we could first trade on e5, Now we even have ideas to bring the rook. G5 is also very strong. Planning to take on H7. Knight to H5 is the only way to stop that. And here knight to G3. We are getting a very strong initiative. Black cannot take on G3 because queen takes is checkmate. So this is just a sample line to show how white's attack is very quick in these positions. In the game, black didn't go for b4 and queen takes a2. Black tried knight to b6, but white just played knight to g3, bringing another piece to attack black's king, and white's attack was also faster than black's. So after bishop to e3, going for bishop to g7 and castling normally scores very well for white. White gets a very strong initiative. That's why black also tried not developing on the king side, but trying to get some activity on the queen side. And normally black does this with the move c6. Just want to mention, in general in these positions, knight to g4 is not a very strong idea for black. For example, in this position, we are going to simply move the bishop, for example, to g5, and now this knight will pretty much have to retreat. And if black tries this idea that we saw in the Sicilian, h6 and then bishop to h4, playing g5 here would not be very logical because black played the move g6. So black is playing g6 and then g5. So black is getting these positions, wasting one tempo. So this is also very risky for black. And if black just develops by playing bishop to g7, we can continue with our idea of castling. And then we have ideas of going f4, h3. We can also push the pawns, even though in this case we are not going to exchange the dark squares bishops easily. We are getting a strong initiative by pushing the pawns. These pawns on h6 and g6 are advanced, so we can have very easy pawn breaks in order to open lines. So this position is already very risky for black. For example, after c6, we just play f4, or h3, this knight on g4 is misplaced. So we can see that we're going to get a very quick initiative by pushing the pawns. So we should not be afraid of the move knight to g4 in these positions. So c6 is the main try for black when black doesn't go for bishop to g7. And here we're going to continue with queen to d2. So here black normally continues with b5. Since bishop to h6 is always an idea, black would even prefer to get that position without wasting time with bishop to g7. That's why b5 is an interesting try. Black plans to play b4 and then capture on e4. And here we could defend with the pawn, but developing the bishop looks more natural. Because in this case, we are not going to get an attack if black doesn't castle short. That's why in this position it makes more sense to develop pieces. Similarly, we are not in a hurry to go bishop to h6. Since black didn't castle, this bishop on f8 so far is a very passive piece, so we are in no hurry to play bishop to h6 in this position. And here black will normally play knight b to d7, because e5 might already be in the air. That's why knight b to d7 is an idea to stop e5, and also black plans to play e5. So here we're going to play knight to f3, and after e5, black tries to get some counterplay on the center. And here we could castle along, but from a practical point of view, I don't like this move, because we are kind of inviting black to attack us. Maybe black would play queen to a5, and then try to get some attacking chances on the queen side. That's why in this position, we're going to play more positionally. We're going to simply castle. Black still has to sooner or later decide what to do with the king on e8. And in this position, black normally continues with bishop to e7. And here the modern game continued d takes e5, which is already asking black to play accurately, because here knight takes e5, even though it might look like a natural move. Normally when a side has less space, trying to exchange pieces makes sense. But here there's a tactical problem. Here we could take on e5, and now we have this very strong idea of taking on b5. So giving a piece, and after black takes, bishop takes, we give a check. King to e7 is just very bad because we can attack the queen with queen to b4, for example. So the only logical way to stop this check is knight to d7. But now here, this pin is just very bad for black. We could continue with rook f to d1, putting more pressure. And if black defends on d7, this position is just crushing for white. And there's even a direct idea of going queen to d5, attacking the rook. And if the rook moves, we have this very nice move, queen takes e5. The knight is pinned, and we are attacking pretty much everything on black's camp. So this is going to be game over pretty soon. So after d takes e5, black has to capture with a pawn. And now the move a4 is putting some pressure on black. If black goes b4, then we're going to play knight to e2. The knight might come to g3. The c4 square is a bit weak, so we get a slight advantage in these positions. That's why in the model game, black tried a6, holding the pawn on b5, rook f to d1. Now black finally is going to castle, bishop to g7. Again here in this position, since we're not getting an attack, bishop to h6 is not necessarily strong. The bishop on e3 is actually stronger than the bishop on g7. And in this position, since there's a pawn on e5, this bishop is not necessarily a strong piece. So we don't need to exchange bishops in this position, it's better to keep more pieces. We also get a space advantage, so it's better to keep the bishops. So the game continued h3, and after black castled, knight to e2, queen to e7, and c4, white is increasing the pressure on b5. And black tried b4, but here white played a very strong move, c5. And the idea is that black cannot take on c5 because queen takes b4 is pinning this knight and we get pressure on b7. So black is going to lose material here. And after a5, queen to c2, white gets a nice space advantage. The d6 square has become weakened, so white has more space to maneuver and a better position. So we have studied the main line after knight to f6, knight to c3, and g6. And in this position, we're going to simply play bishop to e3. And if black goes for bishop to g7 and castling, then we're going to go for queen to d2 and castling long, getting a very strong initiative. Or if black tries c6, then we're going to simply play queen to d2. And if black develops on the queen side by going b5, then we're going to play bishop to d3. And after knight b to d7, knight to f3 and castle short. And in these positions, we get a slight advantage since we have a better control of the center.